Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is the first segment of a lecture on real statistics and Islamic approach, which hopes to a new course on statistics, which hopes to provide a radically different way of teaching statistics. More than 14 centuries ago, the teachings of Islam revolutionized history. The Wahi begins with Iqra and goes on to say, Allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam. That is, Allah Ta'ala gave man knowledge of things which he did not know. The knowledge that Islam gave to the ignorant and backward Muslims revolutionized history. The question today is, are these teachings equally powerful today? Can these teachings be used to change the world today? Today, the Ummah has answered no to this question. Today, the vast majority of Ummah thinks that the way to progress is by learning what the West has learned over the past 3 centuries. This means that if we want to liberate ourselves, if we want to get rid of our current ignorance and backwards, yes, we need to learn chemistry, biology, physics, not the teachings of the Quran. In every dimension of life, the effort of the Ummah is to replicate modern Western institutions. So, in particular, statistics, politics, and economics, all of these things we need to learn from the West. Why is this situation? Why does it seem to us today that Islam has no power? Islam cannot change our conditions, because the Quran is not a complete and perfect guide for our lives today. The reason is that the Ummah has fallen into slavery of thought. To much greater extent than we realize, our thoughts are shaped by the tides of history. And in particular, there are 3 major global historical events which have influenced the way we think. The global domination of the West. By the early 20th century, European nations had control of about 85% of the globe. So colonization is primarily a conquest of the minds. Our minds were conquered by this conquest, and we learned to think in certain ways because of this. Europe itself underwent a great transformation in which they rejected Christianity and learned to think in ways which are compatible with the market society which emerged in Europe. So basically, the world does not contain the Akhirah, and all our concerns should be about this present world. Both these trends, Eurocentric history and secular modern philosophy, have been spread throughout the world by Western education, which is now universal over the planet. So all of us have learned to think in these ways which originated in Europe. And these ways prevent us from understanding the real teachings of Islam, and prevent us from realizing and recognizing the possibility of an Islamic revolution. So the most fundamental of questions is knowledge itself. What is knowledge? Now, the global conquest meant that part of knowledge was designed to justify this. So one of the lessons that is taught by Eurocentric history, which we all learn, is the lesson of Western superiority and Eastern inferiority in all dimensions of life. This is what is used to justify the global conquest of Europe. The great transformation in Europe changed the traditional society to a market society where all objects are commodities for sale, including human lives. So when everything is for sale, then money is supreme God, because it can buy everything. It can buy human lives, it can buy anything that you can think of. So the goal of life becomes to acquire money and power. Western education is designed to turn us into useful parts of a market society. It reshapes our identities. Instead of learning to be human beings, we are trained to be human resources. It changes the concept of social status. The one who has the most power and the most money, he is the most respectable one. So, what is knowledge? Knowledge is that which helps us to achieve these goals, helps us to get money, helps us to get power. So, from that point of view, our Western training teaches us that we do not, the Quran and the whole intellectual heritage, it cannot bring us power, it cannot bring us money in today's world. So, it is useless knowledge. So, one has to understand that the knowledge that we are given in the West in the form of statistics and economics and political science and all other fields, chemistry, physics, there is a pretense of objectivity that this is the fact, this is the truth, this is beyond contest. There is no subjective element in this. So this is actually a fraud. Science is also subjective, but much more importantly, social science is extremely subjective. But because it pretends to have an objectivity, Muslims have been fooled into believing it. The statistics is particularly important in this context. Now, why did the West pretend that its knowledge was objective when it was not? Again, there is a complex history which explains this. But mainly the problem was that there was a huge number of violent battles between Catholics and Protestants. And so Europeans decided that in order to stop these battles, we have to build knowledge on neutral grounds, something which would be acceptable to people of all religions. So it was necessary to create knowledge which was objective, which was equal for all, which was the same for all, so that all parties would agree to it. So that meant that knowledge should be based on observables and logic only. You cannot base knowledge on unobservables, you cannot base knowledge on feelings, you cannot base knowledge on morality, because morality can change between different people. So it turns out, as we will show, that this is impossible. You cannot create knowledge purely on the basis of observables. But because of historical necessity, the West was forced to do so. So even though they created knowledge which had a lot of subjective elements, they had to hide this subjectivity and to pretend that this knowledge which they have is objective knowledge. They fooled themselves and they also fooled others like us. Now, when we base knowledge on observables, then the observables can be measured in some way and they can be quantified, and this is considered the highest form of knowledge. So today we have many things which are not quantifiable, like intelligence, love, trust, quality. Uh, these things are nonetheless quantified by numbers and measured. And so once they are measured, then you can use statistics. And so statistics is the high religion of Western knowledge. It is based on data, and today big data. And the idea is that once we have big data, we can conquer the world, because the data tells us everything we need to know. But in fact, that is not the truth. The data only is the observable face of reality. The underlying hidden reality cannot be observed, and therefore data cannot access it. And therefore there is a very important role for us to understand the hidden reality which cannot be observed, cannot be measured, cannot be quantified. And that is in this course we will focus on those elements and explain how statistics sometimes creates obstacles to understanding. So, what has been the impact of Western education on our lives? So, in particular, Western education trains us to be human resources, to sell ourselves for money in the labor market. It deceives us about the purpose of life, that it is to make money. In fact, the purpose of life is to learn how to be a human being, learn how to develop the potential which Allah Ta'ala has placed inside us. Western education trains us that social status is defined by wealth, power, and by how much we can consume of luxuries. Western education deceives us about the value of human life. The value of human life is the power of your lifetime earnings, is the sum of your lifetime earnings. So if some person can earn a lot, he is very valuable. If people cannot earn much, then they're not valuable. A Western education creates the myth of objective knowledge, that statistics is just pure facts and numbers, and there is no values, no subjectivity attached. This is one of the key elements that we will discuss in this course, how statistics is really a concealed uh, subjectivity. It makes numbers into objective facts when in fact they are all subjective. Western education also creates the myth of rationality, that if we all learn how to reason, we will reach the same conclusion. In fact, this is not true. And also emphasizing reason over the heart, our feelings do not guide us to the truth, when in fact it is our heart which is capable of recognizing God. So Islamic revolution, which came 1400 years ago, was based on both hearts and minds. But today all of this has been forgotten by the Muslims. As it was prophesied, Islam came as a stranger and it will become a stranger. That Islam will remain only in the name and the Quran only in the writing. And that we will follow the ways of the Christians and the Jews, even crawling into snake holes after them. In fact, the Riyasat-e-Medina, the state of Islam, was not built from bricks and cement and iron and steel. It was built on the hearts of the people. It was built out of faith and trust and love. Islamic teachings produced an internal revolution, and Quran says that the God does not change the condition of the people until they change themselves. And about the Medina, it says that Allah Ta'ala united the hearts of people in love. And those people who buried their own daughters alive started caring about how the bird is distressed when the small nestlings are removed from the nest. So this was a revolution in the feelings and the ways of thinking and the ways of acting of the Arabs. And this same revolution is needed today. So what is the concept of transforming knowledge? As the Quran says, that it leads us from darkness to light. And so this is the knowledge that we need to, this is how we need to study statistics, to make it a kind of a knowledge which changes our lives and changes the lives of the people. So the first hadith, which is start of many books, is Innamal Amal bin Niyat. And Imam Shafi'i wrote that this is the hadith which should be used to start every book. So in particular, if we are writing a book about statistics, we need to discuss what is our intention in studying this course. Why do I want to teach statistics? Why do you want to learn statistics? So now the typical intention of the student is that this is a required course. You need to pass it to get degree. You need degree to get jobs. You need jobs to get money, and money is the purpose of life and also necessary for survival in a market society. So with this intention, the students will learn. If they see something interesting, and also if they see something they expect to use, they will ask that, will this material come on the exam? They will memorize stuff and replicate without understanding. And it is typically a dull and boring subject which is of no use in dunya and akhirah. So in this new approach, we have to understand how we can relate statistics to the student's life and to my life and to your life. Does it matter for our lives? Can it lead us to God? Can it lead us to become better people? How can we study statistics in such a way that it can do these things for us? So in order to understand these questions, we have to start with the first question. What is the purpose of life? This is not addressed in a Western education. Western education starts statistics by just looking at numbers and starting to analyze them. But why? Because The implicit answer, not explicitly discussed, is that the purpose of life is to make money, to pursue power and luxuries, and statistics will help us to get a job. So it doesn't matter what statistics teaches, we know that it is useful in getting jobs, and that's enough. The Islamic answer is that we were created solely for the purpose of worship. But what is worship? Allah Ta'ala created life and death to see who could do the best of deeds. So worship involves learning what is the best deed and then doing it. The learning of it, the knowledge, is called ilm, and the doing of it is the zikr. That is the remembrance of Allah. The remembrance of Allah in practice is to carry out the orders of Allah. And learning what the orders of Allah, that is the knowledge that we need. So how can learning statistics become the best of deeds? This is the only case where teaching it and learning it can be justified, because all our life we are supposed to be doing worship. And worship involves trying to find out what the best deed is and doing it. So an Islamic approach to statistics requires that we learn statistics in a way that it becomes the best of deeds and it becomes a form of worship for students and teachers. So immediately a question arises, what about non-Muslims? Can they sit in this course with us? To answer this question, you have to understand that secular, modern, Western body of knowledge is also a religion, although it poses as an objective thing which everyone must believe. In fact, it pretends to be value-free, neutral, but this is not true. It is itself a religion, a particular way of looking at the world, and it has a lot of very strong values, and these values are inhuman. Today, the values of secular modernity lead to continuous warfare, lead to the idea that might is right. You can bomb countries if you have, and destroy a million lives if you have the power to do so. No one will ask any question. It says that corporations can destroy the planet for making profits, and there's no one to ask them why. So this is a particular set of values which is very poisonous to human lives. So when you take a standard secular course, it is like you can take a course and it can teach you how to build an atom bomb, but it teaches you nothing about whether or not it is good to kill civilians. So this is a kind of a religion. The fundamental Islamic value at the heart of this course is the following. How can we learn statistics to provide service to all of the creation of God for the sake of the love of God? How can we use the teaching, study and practice of statistics to improve ourselves as human beings, to change our lives for the better, to change the lives of the students for the better? All human beings can participate in this course because these are universal human values. They are the same for Muslims and for Christians and for Hindus and for Buddhists and for Jews. Note that conventional courses have an underlying value framework which is antithetical, which is opposed to Christian values, to Hindu values, to Buddhist values, and to all religions. So the basic thing is that Islam provides us with a very concrete, very specialized, very unique framework, and it is very useful in developing such a course. So now we come to the question which is the central for this course. What is statistics? So we will give a definition which is different from any that is currently found in the Western textbooks. I will say that statistics is a branch of rhetoric. Rhetoric is a way of arguing to persuade people. So we use numbers in order to persuade people that some things are true and other things are false, to persuade people to favor one policy over another. So it is a way of persuading others. One of the central methods of statistics is to use numbers to measure things, and very often we use numbers to measure things which are inherently non-measurable. So for example, we measure the quality of the university, we measure the intelligence of human beings, we measure trust, we measure all sorts of psychological qualities which are considered to be unmeasurable. We measure corruption, we measure wealth, and wealth is not really very quantifiable. So once a number is presented, that this is the quality number, this is the IQ number, then it gives an illusion of objectivity and it makes your argument very powerful. If I say that um, Ahmed is smarter than Bilal, that is a subjective judgment on my part. But if I say that Ahmed has IQ 120 and Bilal has IQ of 105, then it seems like this is an objective fact. This is clear, true, and nobody can dispute it. So in this course, we want to puncture this illusion. We want to show that even these numbers are subjective and that most of the issues that matter for our lives are qualitative. They cannot be measured, and using numbers creates an illusion of objectivity which prevents us from thinking. And that's how statistics is used to deceive people. Some illustrations of measuring the unmeasurable and consequences. So for example, if people are corrupt and we want to change corruption, we can use the monitor, measure, reward and punish. We can try to put in cameras to see who is acting corruptly, and then we can try to measure the amount of corruption, and if somebody acts corruptly we can punish him, and if somebody is honest we can reward them. But this is the numerical and observational method. But there is another way, which is to say that I trust you and I expect you to be honest and have integrity, and I will not watch what you do. So now this is the opposite of the observation and quantification. And this method of trusting human beings is different from the method of observing and measuring. So an experiment was done in which students were reminded of an honor code and they were given an exam, and they were paid money according to the number of right questions that they answered. So it was found that when the students are reminded of an honor code, that we are human beings with integrity, then they would not cheat. And even increasing the monetary rewards for answering would reduce the amount of cheating. So the lesson from this study was that morality is actually an internalized code of values. It's not that human beings are robots and they respond to rewards and they respond to punishment. They have built-in values, which is why they behave in the way they do. Another experiment showed that if you monitor workers, you reward them for high output and you punish them for bad quality, this leads to poor performance. However, if you trust workers to produce high quality work and give them praise and recognition, social rewards, they perform very well. So there are documented bad effects of measuring. So for example, if we monitor research that has happened in Pakistan and we say, okay, your research is measured by the number of articles you produce, then people will start producing lots of junk articles and publish them in junk journals to get the publication count up. Instead of even good researchers who are trying to produce high quality, they will be diverted. Instead of producing good high quality research, they will start to produce large numbers of bad papers. If you start to measure police performance by the number of tickets they issue, then they start charging people for made up crimes so that they can increase their performance in terms of numbers. In Finland, in the educational system, when they stopped measuring performance, the students' quality improved a lot. In the Vietnam War, there was a similar disaster when McNamara, who was trained at Yale Business School, decided to take a quantitative approach. And he said that, okay, we will count the number of people being killed today, and then we will increase the quantity of weapons used until the kill rate becomes very high, and then we will kill all the enemy. He did not count on the qualitative factors, that if you are being so cruel and hostile, the people will turn against you and they will start hating you, and then the numbers will not matter. It is the energy which comes from the emotions that turned the war around, and it led the weak country of Vietnam to defeat the most powerful army on the earth. So the power of the heart is not measured by the calculations which are based on observables. So there are many, many illustrations of how statistics misleads because it's only based on observables and it's based on quantification of observables. It is not based on the reality which lies behind the observables. One of the illustrations of this is that the most popular textbook of statistics of all time is called How to Lie with Statistics, written by Darrell Huff. This book has sold more copies than all other textbooks of statistics combined. So obviously, you don't want to teach statistics in the conventional way by by explaining to students how we can tell lies with statistics. Instead, we want to tell students how to tell the truth with statistics. So these are some basic ideas behind this new course in statistics.